The presenters are experts in their field. Their work is research-based and accessible. We hope you'll find they'll have utility in your day-to-day lives. As always, AARP is here for you, dedicated to your success.
We hear from a few other sponsors of our event.
At Gold Creek, you can count on us. Our dedicated assisted living and memory care team are here for support during this challenging time. We are doing everything we can to allow our residents to connect with their loved ones. Our residents are like family to us, and we are grateful to be able to support them and keep their spirits lifted. The safety of our residents and staff is our #1 priority, and we are committed to continuing to be Gold Creek strong.
Coastal Hospice promotes dignity and quality of life for patients and families who face life-limiting conditions such as Alzheimer's disease and dementia. We understand that caring for those with Alzheimer's disease can be overwhelming. To help combat this, we provide a team of caregivers who are available 24/7. For more information, call us at 410-742-8732.
Friends, this year has been tough. Between homeschooling, endless Zoom calls, and caring for an adult loved one, we here at Visiting Angels want you to know that we see you and you are doing an amazing job. We also know that all heroes need a break. Visiting Angels offers short and long-term home care, even specializing in Alzheimer's and dementia needs. Call today to see how we can put an angel by your side.
Hello, my name is Savon Purdue. I am an art therapist and the owner of Purdue Art Therapy. I work with folks that have been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. If your loved one needs support navigating this time, processing the losses, and working through the changes, I can help. Please reach out with any questions you may have. I'm happy to support you and your family any way that I can. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you, McGee. I know that was a little tricky this time, especially tricky this time. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce my colleague, Mary DiBartolo. She's a graduate of Towson University with a bachelor's degree in science and nursing. She also has earned her MBA from Salisbury University and her doctorate in nursing from the University of Maryland, Baltimore School of Nursing. She is currently a professor of nursing at Salisbury University, where she has taught in the undergraduate and graduate nursing programs since 1995, specializing in adult health, nursing, gerontology, Alzheimer's disease, and Parkinson's care. She is certified in both gerontological nursing and as a nurse educator. In January of 2016, she was named the Fulton Endowed Professor of Geriatric Nursing at Salisbury University and was recently designated as a fellow in the Gerontological Society of America. She has numerous publications and presentations related to Alzheimer's disease and caregiving, and she herself also has many years of personal dementia caregiving experience to her mother and aunt. So I am so delighted to have Mary DiBartolo talk with us today and teach us.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for having me. It's always nice to come and speak at the Alzheimer's Caregivers Conference. Since I had been involved with that for many years, organizing them at the university back in the mid-90s or so. So it's great to be asked to come back. I do want to mention to everyone that I'm having a bad storm here in Salisbury, and if my internet goes out, we have a backup plan. But hopefully I'll stay with you the whole time. And what I'm going to do with my colleague, Yolanda Wright, who is going to speak after I'm done, I'm going to talk a little bit about early onset dementia, since that's featured in the video, A Good Man. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about it, your thoughts, your reflections, and so forth. And then that'll lead into what services and resources are available. And Yolanda Wright is the expert on that, so we'll let her take over from there. But feel free to ask questions as we go or whatnot. But this overview is just meant to be an overview. I am in no way, a medical doctor or a total expert on early onset, but I do know some about it where it will give us a little bit of a introduction to the clip because it does focus on a couple where the husband has early onset Alzheimer's disease. So let me bring my slides up. Are we good? Can everyone see? Cindy? Cindy? Oh, here we go. Are we good? Can everyone see the slides, or Yolanda, can you give me a thumbs up? Okay, great. All right, so just an overview about early onset Alzheimer's disease. Okay, there we go. Okay, and to start, I think most of us have a very good idea what Alzheimer's disease is. It's a neurological disease characterized by irreversible damage to the brain that causes problems usually early on with more short-term memory, thinking, judgment, and then of course it can progress over time and also include problems with mood and behaviors and so forth. It's generally a condition of chronic confusion, but in an alert state, or some people refer to it as brain failure. It's no longer considered senility or normal aging anymore. We are well beyond that. We know it's a disease process of specific pathology in the brain. And Alzheimer's disease does account for, they estimate, 70 to 80% of all dementia cases. It is the 6th leading cause of death in the US, and it's the only one in the top 10 that cannot be cured or slowed at present. And we know we don't really have an effective treatment or cure at the present moment. We do have a few medications that may help cognitive function for a temporary period of time. Some statistics, 5.8 million Americans currently are living with Alzheimer's, the overall Alzheimer's, not just early onset. That's about 1 in 8 baby boomers, and it does seem to affect women more so than men, partly because women live longer and age is a major risk factor. But every 66 seconds now in the US, someone develops a disease. And it's, as I said, it's the only one in the top 10 that cannot be cured or slowed. We don't see an end in sight right now, although of course we're hopeful that perhaps we'll find a cure or an effective treatment, and research is fast and furious on this, in part thanks to the Alzheimer's Association. But if a cure isn't found, it's estimated that we'll have over 14 million people in the US by 2050. So fingers crossed on that. Other facts, we know a person that develops Alzheimer's will generally live 4 to 8 years after diagnosis, but they can live as long as 20. Physical brain changes can occur, we know now, 10 to 20 years prior to any apparent symptoms. As I mentioned, age is a major risk factor, and the majority of cases do occur in people 65 years and older, and we hear that called age-associated or just a sporadic form that unfortunately can just happen. It is no longer a disease, though, of old age. We do know of some cases of Alzheimer's that occur before the age of 65, and we call those young or early onset type. And these symptoms of Alzheimer's can develop in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that is when it's designated as such. So young onset Alzheimer's. In the US, it's estimated that 200,000 people in this country have the early onset form. It's estimated to be approximately 5% of all dementia cases. A statistic regarding Maryland in particular, they estimate that 1 to 1.5% of Alzheimer's disease cases are young onset. So it's not really that common, but it is important to talk about because there are a few small distinctions about it. The early onset form does progress oftentimes as it would in older people when it happens in those 65 and older. But there is a specific subtype called genetic or familial Alzheimer's disease. And this is where you can inherit a gene directly from your parent and therefore have a 50-50 chance of developing early onset Alzheimer's if you get that gene. And this is where it typically affects multiple generations, and unfortunately, it's usually a little bit more aggressive in nature. So a little bit more about familial Alzheimer's. Luckily, it's rare. It accounts for only 1% of all Alzheimer's cases, but 60 to 70% estimated early onset overall. And not to get too much into genetics because it's very complex, there's a few primary genes you hear about that are involved in the familial form. We have the amyloid protein or APOE E4 gene, and then presenilin or PSEM1. And like I said, without getting too technical, because there's a few others, a genetic mutation in these genes can lead to the development. And these genes are different. There are some other risk genes that can increase your risk of getting the age-associated type, where you might have a slightly increased likelihood, yet it doesn't guarantee it. And of course, as we heard in that very first seminar, there are some things you can do lifestyle-wise that may mitigate that risk. So diagnosis challenges with young onset in particular, this is how it's a little different. Unfortunately, and I would say this applies to the age-associated form as well, we have lots of stereotypes and misconceptions about Alzheimer's disease. I mean, many people still think it's basically senility and so forth. So we still have some more work to do as far as public awareness and education, and the Alzheimer's Association plays a major role in that. Healthcare providers often do not even think about AD in younger people, which makes sense to some degree because it's really fairly rare, but it needs to be back on the radar that it can occur in younger people, especially if they report that they had a parent, or a grandparent that had an early onset form. And then, of course, conflicting diagnoses from various providers can delay the correct diagnosis. And then, of course, many times the diagnosis is dismissed or questioned. It's not something that anybody wants to hear. And oftentimes, people are in a bit of denial, or it can't be that, I'm too young. And oftentimes, symptoms of memory loss and so forth can be incorrectly attributed to stress, which we know when we're in a younger phase of our lives with work and life and child rearing and so forth, stress can be very prevalent. Just without getting into too much detail, because this could be a whole nother presentation, but we don't want to confuse early onset Alzheimer's type with two other subtypes of irreversible dementias, and that would be Lewy body dementia and frontal temporal dementia. These two have different pathologies, but they do tend to occur, I believe the average age of onset for both of those can be in the 50s. So it's important to see a dementia specialist to determine exactly what's going on. And we also know that many people may have a mixed type. They may have Alzheimer's in Lewy body or Alzheimer's in frontal temporal. So obviously, this is a very complex issue and needs a very skilled Alzheimer's physician, diagnostician to realize what's going on, because it can affect how we approach things. And then, of course, just an overview of some of the other unique challenges as far as life and caregiving in general. When Alzheimer's occurs in a younger person, it has a significant impact for anyone, obviously, but in a younger person, many times they're still working, so it can have a great impact on finances and so forth. And of course, it can affect the family. It's a younger family that have to come together as caregivers and so forth. I think it's a whole other issue of stress and so forth. And of course, the workplace, there can be job performance issues early on that lead one to wonder, is there something going on? If there's memory loss and judgment problems and so forth, which can actually lead to losing one's job, and of course the loss of income that goes along with that. Family and other relationships change as well. And that happens even in older onset. But at this point in life, many people are parents of young children. And then the spouse and the children have to turn around and become caregivers. And of course, I think this happens in older onset as well, but many people are very uncomfortable dealing with someone that has this diagnosis. They may shy away, or they're unsure how to interact. And again, this is where education plays a key role in communication strategies and the importance of keeping them active socially and so forth. And of course, it's a very isolating diagnosis, as we know. And they may only communicate with their care partner and feel very embarrassed in particular. And of course, we know that there can be lots of feelings of anger and resentment with older onset as well, but I think it's even more pronounced when it occurs at a younger age, because like, why is this happening? This usually happens in older people. So there can be significant issues with withdrawing from social obligations, community, and so forth. And then there's a whole nother aspect of disclosure issues related to work, insurance, and disability when it's happening in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And then, of course, we always know there can be obstacles in utilizing community resources. So that's why a very important part of this talk is for Yolanda Wright to talk to us about, the different community resources that are out there and get the word out about that, especially to the younger person and their caregiver, because they can feel so isolated. A little bit more about genetic testing. It is available, but it is important to explore the counseling piece first and discuss this in detail with your dementia specialist. There's issues where children of a person, of their parent with the familial type, they may want to get tested or they may not. It's a very personal choice, and that is something that has to be discussed and decided upon on a personal level. Now, there are some pros of knowing. Obviously, you can perhaps address it, know what's going on, explain why the person is having issues, at least have the certainty of the diagnosis and so forth, and maybe discuss with the employer a lighter load or schedule. It's also an opportunity, and this applies to older onset as well, is to get more organized financially. If you haven't done so already, make sure your affairs are in order and know that there are benefits that can be used when it occurs in the younger person with regards to family leave and so forth. And then there are some medical benefits that are available that you can obtain with a special waiver. And also good news is we have lots of research and clinical trials going on, particularly this DIAN study, but there's others, because if we know someone is going to develop it, then we can really examine their brain more clearly and see if there's any factors leading to that development, or see if there's some protective factors or treatments we can try that may prevent it from coming on in general. And then, of course, the old bucket list. I know I watched a video about a family with, I think, 8 or 10 kids. It was on HBO years ago, called The Forgetting. And some of the children wanted to know so they could take care of some bucket list items. And then others said, I don't want to know. I just want to let things play out. So as I said, a very personal choice about wanting to know what's on the horizon or not. And then, of course, the cons, as I mentioned, there can be disclosure issues in terms of the long-term care insurance, disability, and so forth. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview there. And now I believe it's time to take a look at the video, A Good Man, unless anyone has any questions about the early onset content.
And we will have time also after the film, to discuss the film a little bit. And so we welcome your comments that you can chat below. The film is touching. Some of us might need a little tissue.
For months, I would pray to God to take away the anger and to take away the resentment for this man that I was with that was not the man that I married. And I remembered us having a conversation about, how are we going to keep our marriage together? And I said, you know what, Jeffrey? If you make me a cup.
My apologies, it's buffering.
For months, I would pray to God to take away the anger.
My apologies. Let's try that again. Sorry. No.
Mickey, I'm going to pull it up also.
Yeah, I'm sorry. For some reason,
okay.
it's buffering.
It's okay.
But-
But mine played through perfectly twice today, so let's pray.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you better try. 'cause mine
For
seems to be stuck.
months.
Okay.
Sorry, I'll stop sharing. Thank you for your patience, everybody. Sometimes technology is wonderful.
I know, so sorry. And of course, my video didn't play earlier, so then I had to close out and reopen. So that's why all of everything I had saved behind the curtain, so to speak, is not where it needs to be.
Right.
Let's see. We found it.
It had worked a few minutes ago, but
Yes. And it could be this crazy weather that we're kind of in for. It's kind of interesting, but they're requiring us to go to Facebook of all things. McKean, you can share I can share my screen, right?
yeah, you can share your screen. Yeah.
Okay, just bear with me. I'm letting it queue up just for a second because I'm.
Mine seems to be working now. If you.
Okay, I'll get mine in 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry. There we go. Okay, so McKean, I have to hit share computer sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Morning, if you just make me a cup of coffee in the morning, I can do it all. I can do it all. And he did it a couple of times, and then he stopped doing it. And I remembered thinking, what bigger message do I need? This is over. It's a cup of coffee.
We met in a bar. There was this woman across the bar that was just there. I just was just like, wow, who is that? You know, it was kind of one of those, bang, it just hit me. I was like, who is that?
He lit up when I walked over to the table, and I remembered that he asked really great questions. Later, he confessed that all he wanted to do was just keep her there, just keep her there, just don't let her walk away. We ended up leaving there, and we ended up walking around, and I remember him saying, you know, well, got to go to church on Sunday. And I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, I have got to thank the Lord, got to go to church on Sunday because I met you today.
I can tell you it was the best thing that ever happened in my life. You know, meeting her, can't picture myself with anyone else. And having this amazing family of children, which I'm very proud of. And I just want to show them off all the time. My family's everything.
Jeffrey is an amazing father. He's incredibly involved, incredibly in tune to his children. He's interested. And I'm so thankful that they have him as an example of what a good man is. He's a good man. I started to notice a change about 3 years ago.
When I was kind of like, what's going on? I wasn't really, you know, engaged like I was normally.
And I remember feeling like, hello, there are two parents here. Like, when is the other one going to step up and start doing some parenting? And that's where my resentment started to build. That's where I started to feel like he is really checking out of this relationship. And, you know, you have to wonder, like, I didn't sign up for that. I didn't sign up for single parenthood while my husband is still in the household.
I remember not being able to do my job. I was asking a question, and I'd leave, and I'd come back, and I'd ask the same question. And I was just like, I would, he'd tell me, and I'd walk away, and I'd get to my ear, and he'd be like, I forgot it already. And I'd walk back to him and ask him again, and he said it again, and it happened a third. I said, I can't do it a third time. You know, I knew I was like, I just wanted to hang on to it so I can continue.
That was the first time I had ever heard that there was a problem not only at home, but there was a problem at work. I had no idea. So now that I understand, okay, maybe this isn't just about me. There's something like potentially wrong with him. Oh, we're going to find out what it is.
And I remember the doctors bringing me back in and said, you know, you have Alzheimer's. You know, that's what the diagnosis was. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, am I going to die? And they're like, you know, it's like, well, eventually. But knowing that there's like a ticker, you know, and that's kind of deep.
He couldn't figure out how to make the coffee because the coffee maker was too complicated. That's not him. That's not him. That's the disease. In that moment, gone. All that anger, all that frustration, resentment, it was gone. That was, you know, the beginning. The beginning, not the end, the beginning. So the day after diagnosis, I got on the phone with the Alzheimer's Association. It began helping to give structure around, oh my God, we have this diagnosis, what do we do?
We started to take action with different things, saying like, if this is what we're dealing with, that we're not gonna just sit there and let things happen.
the neurologist said to us when we said, well, what do we do? She said, well, there's no cure. So if you have your bucket list with your children, do it as soon as you can. So we thought, you know what? Let's see our country.
Elisa takes the reins, and we're going. And this is what we're going to do. Sometimes I worry about her because I know she's got a lot on her plate, dealing with everyone, but it's what we do. It's what we do for each other and our family.
People healthy, happy, in 2 years' time, we'll take that road trip. Now, we don't have 2 years' time. We have so much living still to do, and we're going to do it now. So it's that purposeful intention, the intention of living, that I think we have found so invigorating as a result of this otherwise devastating diagnosis.
Okay. What we would like to do is have just a short discussion. If anyone has anything they'd like to offer in terms of thoughts or reflections on A Good Man, just unmute yourself and let's talk about it. Any other colleagues want to start it off with their thoughts on it?
Wow. It's a very powerful film, and to understand where this family, the challenges that the family's facing with this diagnosis, it's just overwhelming. Sometimes words are hard to say.
It really is. I think it takes time to just kind of let everything sink in about what we're seeing, all the emotions that come through the film, but also what it makes you feel as watching it, and knowing that there are so many other couples that are going through that. One of the things that really resonated with me when she said purposeful, intentional living. And I think we all can take that, to our own life, but definitely when one has been, given that diagnosis, especially young onset, because of all the things that we've learned from you, Mary, and seeing in the film, but purposeful, intentional living. And I think that's why it's so wonderful that, we as providers, and then through our, the association, we can help them to see that other side of this, to living their best life as much as possible.
Yeah, I also wanted to comment. I think one of the things that really struck me is once they knew what they were dealing with, that it was a disease. It's not him, it's a disease. You hear that quote used a lot. because we can't blame the person. We just have to understand what's going on, educate ourselves. And of course, the Alzheimer's Association can be a great resource for that. And it seemed like just overnight, things went in a more positive direction in terms of the family coming to grips with the diagnosis and understanding why he couldn't make a cup of coffee, versus viewing that as, he doesn't love me, or he's just being lazy, or whatever other things, excuses can come to mind, that it's a disease. So I think it really showed the important role of knowledge is power, getting the Alzheimer's Association involved to understand what you're dealing with versus the uncertainty, which can be so much more stressful in some ways. I also want to comment, I saw there's some comments in the chat about the effect on the children, because it looks like they did have, children. I'm not sure the ages or when those pictures were taken. That's one thing I wish the movie would have done a little bit more with, just showing them with the kids coping with this, because we know it has a tremendous impact on the children as well versus just the spouse.
I think one thing that you brought up, Mary, that reminded me of the diagnosis is that this is her whole experience prior to getting the diagnosis. This is a challenge with early onset, is that we don't recognize, and it sometimes with some individuals, they recognize that there's an issue, but it takes years to get that diagnosis. I think providers are getting better. We're realizing that we can't just use the excuse that it's just stress, or it's just your work, or you just haven't slept well, or, a lot of people give a lot of excuses, both for themselves and or for their loved ones. And that is definitely a challenge with early onset or younger onset is getting to that diagnosis.
Right, it seemed like he didn't have some of the traditional presentation of like short-term memory issues that were evident to her. It was more like a behavior and shutting off and not helping. And so that can come across as there's some kind of marital issue, but it sounded like when she found out there was problems at work, that's what really solidified the notion that something must be wrong, because it wasn't just an at-home thing. So.
This film is available for everyone to watch via Facebook. So, please feel free to share it. I think it does a remarkable job of really just speaking to the feelings and just, the surprise, who would have expected this healthy, vibrant person to have Alzheimer's disease. So let's let Yolanda bring up her slides. And Magin, do you want to do that for us? And we'll leave the chat open too if people want to add any comments about the film, or just the idea about younger onset Alzheimer's, or just, where to find resources. We'll certainly help as much as we can.
Thank you everyone for being here. We appreciate you being here. This is such a topic that hits home to so many more than what we realize, because we know that even though the numbers are what they are, we know that that's not really accurate. So we do always hope that as people will get a diagnosis such as that, or even if they're suspecting, that they will reach out to us. Next slide, please. Okay, and we're going to, we're going to pass that because this is something that Mary has already discussed. Our mission definitely is to enhance the care and support, to eliminate the Alzheimer's disease through research and all other dementias, and reduce the risk. And I want you to look at our symbol, because so many people don't know about our symbol and what it means, but it means that we support man and science. So we are providing the care and support for the person with the dementia, as well as their family and caregivers, but we also support the research. So now you know what those two little things look like and what they mean. So just briefly, I just want to go over some of the things that we have. We have the 24-hour helpline, which is so important. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then support groups, safety programs, emergency assistance, care consultations, early stage programs, education programs, and trial mat and online resources. Next slide. So as we talk about the helpline, this is the number. Please have it handy as you are working with people and know people, maybe neighbors or friends, family that is dealing with a question or dealing with what if, or yes, now I do have it, what's next. Contact our 24/7 helpline. It is available in 100, I think, in 80 languages. English and Spanish is readily available as people call the phone. They can get not only questions and resources and information sent to them, but also can have a time to speak to a licensed professional to even have a care consultation if they need to do so. Continue. And we've talked about the different things that can help. There's so many questions that come through helpline, but this just kind of gives an idea. Yes, next. Support groups, we have about 60 groups throughout Maryland, and right now virtually we have about 37 that are virtual, which we're very pleased about that. And that was based on the group members saying, I am, comfortable with virtual, or no, I'm not, let's wait, and things like that. But I have to say the facilitators are awesome. They are trained by the association, and we screen them, background checks, and all of that, so that we know that we're getting qualified and good people to facilitate these groups, because the people that are there are in a vulnerable state. So we do utilize the support groups to provide not only the emotional, the educational, but the social support as well. Next. We do have a Medic Alert program, and it is a 24 response. So it's a database. People can get a bracelet that looks sort of like the regular medical bracelet, but ours is purple, of course. We have to have it purple. And on the back, it will give another 800 number, and it will give an ID number and even other information they want to say, like memory impaired. And then if the person gets wanders off, gets lost, they're able to, and when we speak to first responders, we let them know to look for that bracelet or that pendant, because that can help them get the person back safely to the caregiver. We also have one that the caregiver can get. So heaven forbid they're in an accident or go to the hospital, they can see that that person is caring for someone that's has some memory impairment, and they can go check on them. Next slide. Okay. We do have some respite assistance funds. Fortunately, through some generous donations from donors, we have it specific for respite. It is a one-time respite grant up to $500. And then what our family care coordinator in the office will do is not only let them know about our respite program, but all of the other respite services in the state of Maryland, and maybe even directly in their county as well. Care consultations is sort of like a little mini therapy session. We try to look at where they are, what resources they have, and what resources they need. We provide, of course, emotional support. We do a little bit of educating, because we know, as Mary said, education is so powerful. It is knowledge. Knowledge is power. And so many times it's just knowing a little bit about how to communicate different that can make a difference in the outcome. So we will look at all of these things and then help them come up with a plan. And this care consultation is with a licensed social worker. Okay. Thank you so much. I know we're cutting it off a little bit. Oh, there we go. I knew it. Thank you. So we do also have early stage programs. We have support groups for the person with the dementia as well as their care partner. And then we have social engagement programs like Walks on the Wild Side with the zoo. We have art moments with Walters Art Gallery. We are looking to start back our Books and Beyond. So all of these things, and we have drumming and we have a sing-along and all these wonderful things that we do virtually right now. And so we try to have them on Fridays at 11. So please look into it and join us. We would love for you to have it. Right now, because it's virtual, even though it's an early stage program or event, we are welcoming anyone and everyone to join us in that. And then we have a lot of education, as you know, and trainings. We have conferences. We have certain programs that we provide for the community. Next slide. As well as we have, these are the different topics that we have, what we call common programs, that is wonderfully made. And so if there's any of these that you know of that you would like to help partner with us, we would be glad to talk with you about that as well. Next slide. We also have trial matches, which is wonderful. And so what that basically is we know we're in a very good place in the United States where there's a lot of wonderful, innovative research going on with Hopkins, University of Maryland, and so many other places. We have probably about 19 studies that's going on in Maryland alone. And so I know if I would be given a list of 19 places or 19 trial studies, and I begin calling them and I answer all their questions only to find out at the end of the call I'm not eligible for that study, I can tell you I wouldn't make it through those whole 19, maybe 3 or 4. And so Trial Match eliminates that frustration. It does the work for you. People can go online and sign up for Trial Match, and then they are able to get connected with the association. They will answer one set of questions, and then they will send them the ones that they would be eligible for. So it's a really good tool when people, and we're really trying to get people to be more proactive. We do great work with advocacy and getting our money for research, but we need participants as well. If you look online, our website is great with a lot of information. I'm not going to go through this because you definitely can read it, but there's so many things that you can find through the website and the Community Resource Finder. And we have what we call rapid referral, which a professional, any healthcare professional can sign this for us, as well as the provider, the physician. I've gotten many from, we've gotten many from the hospital social workers and different places like that. But if you are meeting with someone and you know that you want to get them connected with the association, you can ask their permission. They will do the top part, and then you do the bottom part as the provider or the professional, and then you just send it in to us. And as we get rapid referrals, we work on those very quickly. Also, the beautiful thing about the rapid referrals is that we will follow up with you as the referring source and let you know what has happened with the person, what we've done for them, and where things are at that point. So it's a great tool, and we hope that you will utilize it. Again, just stay connected to us through our Facebook page. Please like us on Facebook. We have one specifically for Greater Maryland chapter, and then there's one for the national. And then, of course, with Impact Movement, that's all about advocacy, and our 24/7 helpline, and just so many other things in which you can stay connected. Thank you so much, and we will take any questions at this time about anything that Mary has spoken about, any about our resources or the film. Mary, you're muted.
Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. I wanted to make sure I was muted and then I forget. So there's a question in the chat about favorite movies or books. So briefly, I mentioned if anyone in particular is interested in early Alzheimer's, it's been out for quite some time, but that HBO special called The Forgetting has a really nice little vignette about a family dealing with early onset, where the mother got it in her 30s, was forgetting to pick up the kids at school, and there's 7 or 8 kids, and some want to know and some don't, and some already have it, and it explores all those issues. I think it's quite helpful, and I believe you can find it on YouTube. I think I wanted to look at it again, and I found excerpts on there. So I wanted to mention that. As far as a book, and of course, there's a 36-hour day, and there's many, many books. But the one that I have found that I think is really direct and simple, short chapters and types of things is it's called Creating Moments of Joy by Jolene Bracke. I think that's an excellent little practical guide with short chapters on how to use music, communication strategies, but it's very easy to read. It's a quick read and nice resource, I think, for caregivers, professional and personal caregivers. So that would be my 2 suggestions. I know others have other suggestions.
Yeah, just a few things I would want to mention. Still Alice was a book, and then it turned into a movie, which was excellent. I think that you could do either or, read the book or see the movie. The association had our input in this, so everything that they bring out as far as what she experienced, the research and everything they talk about is accurate. And it gives you a great picture of some of the struggle also that a young onset person would experience. Also, The Inheritance is a book that talks about young onset and also the familiar Alzheimer's, where they do have the gene and it does hit every generation. And that is a wonderful book as well.
And there was a movie that we showed in Talbot County that was called Far From Her. I think I wrote, and basically this woman has relatively younger onset Alzheimer's. She might be in her late 70s.
And, is that called Away From Her?
Maybe it is Away From Her.
I think it's Away From Her. I've seen that.
Thank you. And it is so powerful, isn't it? The acting is fantastic. And because I don't know if this is how Canada does it, but they kind of do things a little differently. And even that is sort of startling to an American. Just the interview with that when they check out, when they go to look at a place, the admissions person is really different, than you would expect our admissions officers to be. So it's really wonderful. Hard to watch, but really wonderful.
And if you're looking, I'm sorry, Cindy, if you are looking for anything for children or teens, you can go on our website, and there's a section there that talks about dealing with children and teens through somebody close to them having Alzheimer's or dementia. And so it's a great tool. There's a lot of books. So you could do two things. You could either call our helpline, and they could probably send you a listing of books or films. But also you could contact one of us at the local level as well too, because we do have a listing of those.
One other short film that you can find, I think just by Googling it, is called Late Afternoon. And it's actually animated. And Tammy Weber from Candle Light Cove found it, and she was the one who organized our film festival. It's fantastic last year. And it's just so charming and moving and so surprising. Who would think, an animated film could really get to the heart of the matter? And I mean, I don't know enough film, but it was just a great 10, 15 minutes of your life, to really connect with this caregiver and the mother who has dementia, and the older lady with dementia. She's sitting in her house with a cup of tea, and when she looks in the cup of tea, she kind of goes into the past, and it all comes together so nicely. Great little film. So
I would encourage everyone that's on the call, if you look in the chat area. A lot of people are putting the names of the things we're mentioning and even some links. So please take a look at those because they're mentioning different films and such.
And I would just like to make sure that, this film actually represents African Americans who we know are higher at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease, and also underrepresented as a whole in research. And women are also underrepresented in research in a lot of areas, in most areas. So when Yolanda was talking about trial match, a lot of the research, especially for younger people, is not necessarily prescription based, right? They're gonna, you could get involved with a longitudinal study that only requires you to swipe your mouth and maybe send in your hair, maybe blood work. So not all research or clinical trials are medical, are really about testing a prescription. And if you want to go to trial match and that's not what you want to do, you have ultimate control over whether you join which trial you join, whether you join any of them. So just to let you know.
Yeah, I looked into one of those, and I was a good match for it because I had it. My mother had age associated. She got it when she was in her 70s, and died when she was 81. But I was, decided I would try to participate in one and involve the mouth swab just to see. And then I do cognitive testing every 3 months on the computer.
That's
and I
great.
feel like I'm making a contribution, to see if there's going to be a tendency or protective factors and so forth. I think, everyone is yearning for that information. What can I do to help in the absence of a treatment or cure at this time?
The other one that we sometimes don't think about is the non-clinical studies, which are also on trial match, which are caregiver studies, whether they're evaluations or surveys, to journey with a caregiver over a period of time regarding emotional stress, health, etc. And there's a number of them in our area.
That's fantastic, McGee.
And I
Thank you
think
so
we're
much.
getting more towards intervention studies, though. I mean, we know caregivers are struggling and are depressed and stressed and all that. And now it's time to move into more about interventions to help caregivers. As you all know, at the Alzheimer's Association, that's one of your main businesses. So.
One of the things I want to mention, which is a wonderful, positive thing, we talked about with young onset, the struggle and the frustration of not being eligible for different things because of age. So through our wonderful work of our advocacies, we now have it where, excuse me, if they apply for disability, if they have the diagnosis of dementia of any type, their paperwork will be expedited to weeks rather than months. So that's huge. So we encourage people to do that when we're talking about the financial piece and such for young onset. Also, just more recently, they have passed where through the Older Americans Act, that young onset people will be able to get the services that typically is for 60 and over, 65 and over, things like that, maybe like transportation and those kind of services. So that is a huge, good direction that we're going in terms of laws and things like that to help our young onset people.
Definitely. And, we're doing a lot of other programs as well. Next Monday, we have a part 1 of Living with Alzheimer's for middle stage folks. That's a lot of times where people are, starting to need more assistance. Maybe not a lot of assistance, but more reminders or more, just they also are knowing that they're going to have more challenges coming ahead. They are starting to get their arms around what they need to do to prepare. So please join us next Monday at 6:30 for Living with Alzheimer's. Again, not focusing on, learning to empower yourself and make the most of every moment you have together and use the resources that are out there to help, these new chapters of your life, become more positive.
And living with Alzheimer's will be great for professionals because you'll have a better clue as what middle stage entails. However, please reach out to your contacts of actual family members who are caregivers that they can be a part of this so they can learn about middle stage.
And then next month, I don't have the date in front of me, but we have a technology, webinar that we're going to do because I think there have been a lot of advances in technology that's suitable for folks with, to be of assistance. So look out for that. And we have a whole slew of programs. Oh, here we go. My computer's being nice. Oh, these are the programs that are actually these are our early stage engagement programs, like that are, again, what Yolanda mentioned, at 11 o'clock on Fridays. And we have them on the 10th. We're skipping the 3rd in July, but we've got the sing along and a drum circle and the like. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But we just thank you so much for attending today. And those of you who want the link, you can, if you're on Facebook, it will be posted. I'm not sure exactly when, but maybe by the end of next week. Tammy Weber posted on her page the film. So we'll make sure that the film gets posted to our page. So if anybody wants to share the film with others, please go ahead and do so. We just are delighted that people are interested in all aspects related to Alzheimer's and those related dementias. And there are quite a few of them. So, one thing to keep in mind is one's, ability to sort of, if there's something not adding up, maybe take a note, but if it's consistent or if it's rather intense, a minor, you miss this bill or you don't do this. Once in a while, we all have a little brain fog or we have too many things going on. But, pay attention and pay attention to your own brain health. The subjective cognitive measures are really important. So, some of us just need more sleep, right? And then our functioning may improve. Some of us, so nonetheless, just start to be aware of your brain health and your cognitive functioning. Know that there are a lot of healthy living lifestyles are helpful for many of us to improve our aging and how we age. So keep getting active, keep eating well. If it sounds a little too good to be true, don't spend a lot of money on something right now. Call the Alzheimer's Association, check it out. We only are going to tell you about things that have been stringently researched. We're not going to sell you anything. So, we just want to make sure that you take care of yourselves, and wanted to thank you. And Dr. Mary, thank you for your wonderful feedback, research, and wonderful slides. People come away with a lot of information today, not just the emotional side of the film as well. Yolanda, thank you for explaining so beautifully many of the programs that we offer. And Yolanda is just a gem of a person. I can't tell you enough how much she helps everybody. Doesn't matter where they live, doesn't matter what time, she would drop everything and help. So don't hesitate to reach out to Yolanda or myself or McGeen. Any of us on the program team are delighted to help. We could always use help on the walk side or longest day side. We're always looking to make sure that we keep the funding coming and keep the awareness on Congress and the awareness on the issues that are really important today. So without further ado, we appreciate your time and hope you have a fabulous summer weekend that's coming up. And sorry about some of these technology glitches. I think there was probably a little more going on in the atmosphere than we realized, right? But we got through it, and patience, and we really appreciate an understanding of the little trickiness with showing a film. So thanks for your time.
Thank you, Cindy,
today.
for having us, and I want to give you a shout out too for organizing a very nice series of seminars.
Thank you, Cindy.
Good. Oh, you're welcome, guys, and look forward to coming up with more ideas. And please, if you know us, if you have any suggestions, let us know what you'd like to learn more about, and we might be able to pull something together. All right. And so have a wonderful day. Appreciate your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.